let's begin with the review from last week. Okay. So I'm going to read the question, and this is all in English. All of the review is in English, so you have to answer in English. I'm going to ask the question in English the same way that they would if you were in your interview. Okay. So the first question is, what is the economic system of the United States?
Market economy.
Market economy. Yes, or capitalist economy. Both of them are correct answers. And by the way, I'm not going to go in sequence. I'm not going to go in order. I'm going to ask the questions in a different order. So who is in charge of the executive branch?
The president.
The president.
Very good. Very good. And who makes the federal laws?
Congress.
Congress.
What's another way to say that? You can say Congress. That is a correct answer. But how else can you say that? You can say legislation or legislative, or you can say the Senate and the House of Representatives. But Congress is the one. That's the correct answer. Name one branch or part of the government. Name just one.
Congress.
The president.
President.
Executive branch.
Yes. Executive branch or president is okay for that. Legislative branch or Congress is okay for that. And none of you like the judges or the judicial branch, I guess, because no one named that. But any one of those, you only have to name one, and you did well. You did well.
Yeah.
How many U.S. senators are there?
100.
100. No, 435.
No, that's the House of Representatives. How many senators are there?
100.
100.
Representative 435.
Yeah, very good, Afaf, yes. But that wasn't the question I asked. I asked how many senators and how often or how many years do we elect a senator for?
6 years. 6 years. 6 years.
For 6 years.
Everybody has a different answer. The correct answer is 6 years.
6 years.
Yes. Okay, and what are the two parts of Congress?
The Senate
And the House.
The Senate and House.
Very good. The Senate and the House of Representatives. Very good. Very good. And what stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful?
Separation of power.
Checks and balances.
Check and balance.
And both answers are correct. Separation of powers. or
Separation of
checks and
power.
balances.
Yes.
Yes.
تعالي.
And okay, this question here, I'm going to ask you to explain a little bit more, not just give the answer. I want to ask you, what is the rule of law? But I also want you to tell me, what does that mean?
No anybody above the law.
Everyone should obey the law.
No one above
No
the
one is above the law.
Okay, and does that mean policeman?
Everyone.
Yes, everyone.
Does that mean the president?
Yes.
Everyone.
Everyone, very good. Very good, yes, everyone, it has to obey the law. Let's see, who makes the, or excuse me, how often do we elect the House of Representatives?
2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
Very good, and if you know them, what is the name of the senators in your state? Just name one of them.
Diane.
Feinstein?
Diane Feinstein.
Yes. Anybody remember the other one?
And Alex
Padilla.
Bazella.
Yes, and if you're Spanish, it's Padilla, Alex Padilla.
Yeah.
Okay, now, FF, you said the correct answer to this before. We'll give you a chance again. How many representatives are in the House of Representatives?
435.
Very good, Jumala. Okay, let's see. Who does a senator represent?
All the people in the state.
people of
the state. All the people of the state.
Yes, all of them, not one section, not Northern California, Southern California, not this district, that district, the entire state. Very good, very good. And why do some states have more representatives than others?
Because more
population. More people.
People.
Because they have more people.
Yes, because more people, population.
More people than others.
Yeah.
Very good. And can you name your member of the House of Representatives?
Ken Calvert.
Ken Calvert. Very good, Rasul.
Yeah.
And the rest of you, you need to, when you take your interview, you're going to need to have looked that up just before, so that you will know it. Okay, you guys did very good on those. Very good on those questions. Now, we're going to start tonight with question number 26. I'm going to put it up on the screen for everyone to see. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is the president, vice president, and his cabinet. And we'll get as far as we can get tonight, and then we'll, let me get it, there we go. There we go. Let me. Okay, now the president, he is elected every 4 years, and he is elected at the same time on that fourth year. The election is always a Tuesday in November, and it used to be that he was elected for 4 years and could serve as many terms as he was elected. But now it is restricted. He can only serve 8 years, and they can be 8 years in a row or 2 terms, or he can serve 1 4-year term and then later be elected for another 4-year term with a space in between. But 8 years is the most that he can run. We have a thing called the Electoral College, which is where all of your votes get translated into, and the Electoral College is the one who actually casts your vote for the president. And all that's written on your paper. But the question is, we elect a president for how many years? And the answer is 4 years.
4 years, yes.
Okay. The next one is, in what month do we vote for the president? And I answered this a minute ago when I said it's in November, and it is the Tuesday after the first Monday. So it is basically a Monday has to happen, and then that next Tuesday. So it could be on the 8th, or it could be on the any day before that in November. And it's been that way for a long time. And if you remember the election that we had, if you were in the country, the election we had in 2020, that was the election for a new president. And can you name who is the president now?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, yes.
Joseph Biden.
And you can answer his name in any of 3 different ways. You can give his full name, Joseph R. Biden Jr. You can just say Joe Biden, or you can just say Biden. They will accept all of those answers when you are asked, okay? And
Teacher,
vice president is. Yes, did you have a question?
how long it take when the election result is coming up? Like, you know, a week or 2 day, 3 day?
Okay, on election night, most of the TV stations, after the polls are closed, start predicting who they believe is going to be the winner. Sometimes it takes until the next day, until all of the absentee ballots and the ballots that are mailed in get counted also, but usually within a 24 to 48 hour at the longest. And if there's an issue with the voting, like one state has machines that break down, or there's a blizzard, no one can get to the polls, then sometimes it will go a little bit longer. And then we had one presidential race recently that went to the courts to decide which votes get counted which way. And that took a little bit longer, but in most cases, in my lifetime, there's only been 2 instances where it was delayed any longer than 1 day. And so your question is a good one, because some countries, it can take months before you find out who won. But in our country, you find out very quickly.
Thank you.
Now, who is our vice president?
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, correct. And just by way of understanding our system of government, she was a senator from California who had to resign being senator to become vice president. And that is why we had Alex Padilla, who the governor appointed to fill out her term. So she was a senator before she became vice president. Now, the question number 30, if the president can no longer serve, who becomes president?
The vice
The
president.
vice
The
president.
vice president.
The vice president, yes. And we have had a few situations where the president has been assassinated. In fact, in the information that you have in front of you, it mentions the Lincoln assassination, the Kennedy assassination, the Garfield assassination, and the McKinley assassination. In all of those cases, the vice president, because of the death of the president by an assassin, the vice president took over. We also had 2 or 3 of the presidents who died of natural causes while they were in the office. And those were William Henry Harrison, Zachary Taylor, and actually Warren G. Harding and Franklin Roosevelt. So 4 of them who died while in office. And we had 1 president who resigned, did not fill out his full term, and that was Richard Nixon. So there have been cases where the vice president needed to ascend or go up to the office of president. So it has
How
been.
long the vice president would be president? How long it should be?
Great question, Farzana. He would fulfill the elected term of the president. So if the president died 2 years into his term, the vice president would only serve for another 2 years because every 4 years we have an election.
Okay.
Good question. Okay, now, and by the way, all of this, if someone mentions it to you, is called the succession, which means who follows who, follows who, follows who, follows who, the succession plan for president. And if the vice president and the president cannot serve, the one who becomes president is the Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House, do you know what her name is right now?
No.
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi.
Pelosi. Yep, very good, very good. And that is one of the questions later on, but I just want to know if you knew right now. And so the third person in succession, or the second one after the president, is the Speaker of the House.
Teacher,
Yes.
a quick question. How long the Nancy Pelosi on this position?
Oh my goodness. She's been in this position for at least at least 6 years, maybe longer, at least 6 years. She was in the position before when Barack Obama was president. And then partway in his term, the Republicans became the majority. And so there was a different, his name was Paul Ryan, who was the Speaker of the House. And then it went back to Nancy Pelosi during the second term, or during the second half of Trump's first term. I know that may sound confusing, but she's done it off and on. So right now it's been since 2018 that she's been the Speaker. And they can serve, the Speaker of the House is selected by the House of Representatives as their leader, and it usually comes from the political party that is in the majority. Okay, question. Is that
For how long she can be on her position? Like, you know, for how many terms? Is there some kind of rule?
There's no limit. For every year that they renew the election of the representatives, of course, she has to be elected from her district. But if she is elected from her district or whoever, as frequently as the House of Representatives wants to vote her to be the Speaker of the House, she can do it, or he can do it. So there is no term limit for Speaker of the House, which makes it a very powerful position.
Yeah, every year, and they are going for election, and they are.
Yes, well, every 2 years they elect new representatives, but every year, because of the new representatives, a portion of them have been elected, and then they, in many cases, they don't vote as much as they give their assent. They agree, yes, she can stay doing the position, and a lot of that's because the other party doesn't get a majority. So, for example, in the next election, the end of this year, it is predicted by some people that the Republicans will have a majority in the House of Representatives. If they do, they will elect a Republican Speaker of the House. They've already-
Majority means 2/3 or 15 plus 1, like, 50%, then plus 1.
Yes, exactly. Just past 50%. Yes. Yeah, they do not need to have 2/3 or 3/4. It is just the majority.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, the commander-in-chief of the military in this country is the president. And he is the one who he can't declare war, but he can command the armed forces. He can move them in position for war. He has the ability to direct the military, but only the Congress can declare war. So, and you can read the information on what year all that went into place, but he is considered the commander-in-chief of the military. And in a lot of governments, it is that way, where the person who is the supreme leader within the country also commands the military. Okay, another job of the president is question number 33. Who signs the bills to become law?
The president.
That's right. And we will go through, and we won't do it right now, but we will go through how a bill becomes a law. It is something that is introduced by the legislature. It is voted on by the legislature, and the president has the right to agree with it, which means he would sign it into law, or the president has the right to disagree with it, which means he can veto it. And that's question 34. Who has the right to veto a bill or
The
veto a law?
president.
The president.
The president.
Sir,
Yes.
I think last week you mentioned that if the president still vetoed the law, but if the 2/3 of the Senate and House of Representatives, legislative, if they pass, so still it become a law.
Correct. The Congress has a way of getting around a veto, but it takes 2/3 of the Congress to override his veto. And most of the times, the Congress is split like 50-50 or a little bit over 50-50. So it's very difficult to get a 2/3 majority to override a veto. It has happened. It actually has happened a number of times, but it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
So yes, you are correct, Rizul, you remember correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking about this way, for example. So I'm a president and I'm not agree with everyone,
Right.
but at the same time, I'm not a good judgment, what
Mhm.
I'm doing. So probably it's a good idea that, everything by election between the Congress people and, the majority of the vote, then it become the law, because the president is one person.
Yes.
He may do some things.
Well, and sadly, a lot of those decisions on whether he's going to veto or not veto are not based on whether it's going to be good for the country. It's based on what his political party believes. So a lot of it goes to political philosophy, which is sad because it may very well benefit somebody. But then a lot of times vetoes happen because they're going to cost the people a lot of money. And the president says, no, we're not going to charge the people that. We're not going to create taxes to pay for it. And so it takes 2/3 to override that veto. And it says that in the information, right, where's the cursor? Right in here. It talks about 2/3 overriding it. The other thing about a veto is if the president decides he doesn't want to do anything with a bill that comes to his desk, that doesn't mean that the bill will automatically disappear. What it means is it automatically becomes law. He has 10 days to respond to it. And if he does not sign the bill after 10 days and Congress is still active, then it automatically becomes a law. So quite often, a president will show that he doesn't like it, but he's not going to veto it. And so he doesn't sign it, but after 10 days, it still becomes a law.
Thank you, teacher. Very good explanation. Thank you.
Certainly. Then what does the president's cabinet do? Okay, now let me just explain the word cabinet.
Advise the president.
They advise the president. Yeah, in many countries, like in Israel, they have the Knesset, They have the Labour Party, the House of Lords, House of Commons in England. Many countries have elected officials that are part of their Congress, but not many countries have an advisory group that is very close to the leader, that is sanctioned by or is written into the Constitution. The cabinet and cabinet members are part of our Constitution as the advisors and part of the executive branch to advise the president. And we're going to go through and take a look. In fact, I'm going to put up a list right here, and it's fairly extensive, of the different cabinet positions. And I'm also going to show you who is in those positions right now, or who's in most of those positions right now. Every president has the right to nominate or suggest to the Senate different people to fulfill those cabinet positions. And they have to be approved by the Senate. And when we have a new president, all of the cabinet, since they're his advisors, all of the cabinet usually changes. Sometimes one or two will stay the same, but in many cases, almost all of the cabinet changes. And right now, in these different areas, department leaders, you can see the names of them in front of you. And I don't know if Viola has this, but I can send it to her to get to you. Not that you have to remember the names. All you have to remember is you have to name cabinet positions. In fact, the question says, and we'll look at it. It says we are 2 cabinet level positions. So you need to be able to name them, and I will read them so you understand the reading of it in English.
All of them or 2 of them?
Say again?
Should we remember all of them or two
No,
is
2
enough?
of them. I'm sorry. Good question, Farzana. You only need to remember 2 of them.
Yeah, 2 of them.
2 of them. If you want to impress the person interviewing you, you can remember all of them, but you don't have to.
Okay.
I'm going to read the English so you understand, and I'm going to define their area of responsibility just briefly so that you understand what each of them does, because their name doesn't necessarily indicate all of it. The Secretary of Agriculture, that's the first one. He is the person in charge of the food sources and the farmland that we have within our country. So if the farmers have an issue and the president is wondering what to do, the Secretary of Agriculture is the one who would know what's going on with all of the food source and all of that. The Secretary of Commerce is the one that has to do with the trading of goods or the selling of goods that are manufactured or grown within the country. And the price points for those, all of that, that's commerce. That's the exchange of money for goods. Secretary of Defense is the one in charge of our country. We used to have a Secretary of War. That was changed to the Secretary of Defense, so that if we ever get into a war, he is the one who is managing advice in that area for the president. Obviously, the Secretary of Education has to do with the federal government's direction and what their advice is for education within the country. Secretary of Energy, that's a position that has to do with, are we going to be changing our systems over to solar power or nuclear power or whatever. He advises the president on the best way to do that. Right now, we are a petroleum-based society, even though we have other forms of energy. We do have solar energy, we have wind energy, we have hydroelectric energy, we have all sorts of energy, but right now we are a petroleum-based energy country. Secretary of Health and Human Services has to do, just like it sounds, with medical and all the other things that go on for serving the population of the United States in their needs. Homeland Security has to do with threats that come from foreign countries as well as from within. Housing and Urban Development has to do with the infrastructure of our housing system within the country, and there are federal laws that govern what you are allowed or not allowed to do when you own a building or you build houses for people. You can't build them below a certain standard. You can't make them out of just raw materials and have them fall down when there's an earthquake or a wind. So the Housing and Urban Development deals with that, as well as how to take care of homelessness and many of the other issues that we have in the country. Secretary of Interior is the one who deals with all of our national parks, all of our land management, And we have a very large country with a lot of land. We have many, many national parks, and I hope one day many of you get to go to places like Yellowstone and Yosemite and other national parks, which are beautiful. Let's
I have
see.
a question.
Sure.
If we have a housing secretary, so why do we have many homeless people in LA or around the area?
That's a great question. We do not have a national way to take care of or address the situation of homelessness.
Yeah.
And we have not done a good job in this country. Actually, many countries have a hard time with this, but we have not done a good job. And there are many homeless when the economy goes bad because they can't afford their place that they were living in. And then you need to know that about 35% of the people who are homeless in this country choose to be homeless. They don't want the responsibility of having a job. They don't want the responsibility of having a family. And they don't want to, and some of them are mentally incapable. They have mental problems. And so they stay on the streets, sadly. And they have what I would consider a substandard way of living. But for some of them, and I have a good friend, I'll give you an example. His name is Vrain. He's a sweet black gentleman, very nice man. And he lives on our church campus. When I say he lives there, it's not his dwelling place. It's not a mailing address for him, but he watches our property at night because we are in an inner city area that has a lot of vandalism and things like that. He chooses not to have a home, not to have a regular job. We take care of him to a certain degree. We don't pay him. We make sure he gets food, make sure he has warmth during the wintertime, but he does not want any charity from anybody, and he chooses to live on the streets. That is his choice.
Yeah.
So why do we have homeless? Well, 30, maybe up to 40% now choose to do that. And then there are on top of that others who are, they lost their job. They have other things going on. And I wish we had a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad when
It is very sad. And with me as a pastor, our church does a lot to help the homeless because we are in the inner city. We have food drives where we provide food for them. We hand out blankets at certain times of the year. We do anything we can to help them, but obviously it's not a matter of money for some of them. It's a matter of just helping with their immediate need. So yeah, it is sad. And
the
one of
question,
yes.
teacher, the question is like Farzana asked, it is a conflict between land of opportunity, then, and a lot of homeless. It is,
it's contradictory.
Conflict, yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, that we also need to know. There are those who choose not to, and then there are a lot of lazy people who just don't want to work. You guys, you are a great testimony, a great witness, a great example of people who come to this country, who come from a disadvantaged situation. Not that you're disadvantaged in your abilities, but you come from a less than good environment. Some of you had to leave your country because of violence, all sorts of things. You come here and you are able to make a life. Now, it's not easy, but you work and you show that someone, even coming from another country who isn't a citizen, has the ability to work and take care of his family or her family and provide some of the basic things. And yes, all of us need help sometime, but you demonstrate that in this country, there is opportunity. In many countries, there is not the same opportunity.
Yes.
There is not. Especially if you're a foreigner, if you are not born in that country or a citizen.
We can't work even. We are not allowed to work in some countries.
Yes. And well, in some countries, certain genders in Saudi Arabia, certain genders cannot have a job. And I know with the Taliban, even that is part of what's switching back.
Yes, right now in Afghanistan, this is the situation.
Yeah, it is sad. So that's a great question. It is a conflict that those of us with a big heart have to wrestle with on a regular basis because there are opportunities here. And we also have selfish people in this country who have a lot and they don't do anything to help those who have a little. And that's greed and all the other things which are part of the human condition, which isn't is sad to watch. There are people who are in San Francisco that live in mansions and provide nothing for people who are living on the streets just a mile away from them. It's sad.
Yes.
Anyway, now you hear me talking as a pastor. The Department of Labor deals with employment. It deals with making sure there are fair labor laws. In our country, 150 years ago, there were no labor laws for children, and children sometimes worked around the clock, and they worked in what were called sweat houses, where they were treated poorly. The Labor Department manages and makes sure that there are laws to protect that. The Secretary of State is the person who has the relationships with foreign governments. They're the person who visits the dignitaries or has visiting dignitaries relationships, so that we are in good communication with other countries around the world. And sometimes those break down. Secretary of Transportation, that speaks for itself. Our highways and the types of transportation we use, whether that's air travel, train travel, automobile travel, subway, all of those things, the Department of Transportation has a federal eye on, or a federal overview for. And Secretary of Treasury, if you have a dollar bill and you look at it, you will see that there's a signature on there for the Secretary of Treasury, and those change with different administrations. They're the ones that make sure that we manage our reserves and money well and advise the president on economic affairs. Secretary of Veteran Affairs, we like to make sure we take care of those who have served in the military, and we have a whole department that is part of the executive branch to make sure that that happens. The Attorney General is in charge of the executive branch Justice Department, and then we have the Vice President, who is already has the duty to be the second in line for president. So those are the main cabinet positions. You just have to remember two of them. And I know I took a long time to explain them, but I think it's important that you understand what it means, because some of the words in English may not resonate or have meaning for you from where you come. So,
Pastor, I have a question.
Sure.
All the time for the secretary, 15 departments.
The 15, there actually is one more that's not on here, and it's the what is it? Donald Trump created. It's the space program, Space Command program, and there's somebody in charge of that also. But these are the main ones that have been around, and all you have to remember is 2. You don't have to know all 15, but yes, there is a limited number.
Oh, not to change it, sometimes 17 or 18 or.
Yes, and sometimes a president will create, like during some of the Homeland Security didn't exist before 9/11. That was a new one, and so it can change. Sometimes they've united both of them. They've taken 2 different ones and made it into one. So yeah, there's no constitutional limit on how many different cabinet positions, but these are the recognized ones, and these are the ones that the Senate approval needs to be done for.
Thank you.
Teacher.
Yes.
Another question regarding the cabinet. I need to find the answer. So we said the president select his cabinet, right?
Correct.
So one of the question is it if the president's political party is Democrat or Republic, so can he choose all of them from the same party? Then my next question related to this question is, are these people is just by approving of the president or the House of Representatives, like other people also involved?
Okay, let me make sure I understand your question. First off, yes, usually a president selects people from his political party, and they have to be approved by the Senate. There have been presidents who believe they get the best group of advisors by having people from both parties as part of their cabinet, meaning that they get advice. In fact, there was a book written about Abraham Lincoln called Team of Rivals, because he had people on his cabinet who were his competitors for president when he was elected and from the opposite political party. So it's up to the president how he does it. Most of the time, the president selects people from his own political party. And one of the reasons that the Senate they take a long time to approve them is because they don't necessarily like all the people from his political party. So does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's I mean, you know, if the president want like all of them from the same party, it might be again in conflict with some people in Congress.
Yes, and that happens. And so sometimes they withdraw a recommendation and put somebody else up for recommendation because they know that the Congress is not going to accept them. So.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Okay. Let's move on. Did we have anybody else with questions? Okay. What does the judicial branch do? They are the ones responsible to make sure that balance continues between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And there are 4 different things listed here. And you, all you need to do is you can accurately list any one of these and it would be acceptable. So it says, what does judicial branch do? They review laws, they explain laws, they resolve disputes, and they decide if a law is against the Constitution. And most of the time, what you will find them doing is the last one, deciding if a law goes against the Constitution. Congress will make a law, a president will sign it, and someone will say, I don't think that's constitutional. They will take the case to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will say, I agree or I disagree. They'll review the Constitution and they will come up with an answer. So
The four question for this answer for this question, 4?
no, you only have to name one, but there are 4 ways of explaining what they do.
Oh, yeah.
They review laws, explain laws, resolve disputes, and decide if a law agrees with the Constitution.
Only one.
Yes, only one. You only have to have one answer. Okay. We have somebody who's drawing on the screen. That's not me. So whoever is, I don't know who, maybe a child took over one of the computers.
But no one can touch your computer. This
No,
is
not my computer. It's because we allow anybody to share. They have. So I promise you, I'm not drawing red lines on the screen. That's not me. I think it's the phone number one, Viola, that has the hand up also. I think maybe somebody started pushing buttons. Anyway, question number 38. What is the highest court in the United States?
The Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court, very good. And the members of the Supreme Court are shown here in a picture. And I will read their names. You don't have to remember their names. You're going to only have to remember the Chief Justice name. But right now, I'm just going to read the names so that you can see them. John Roberts, who is the Chief Justice. Samuel Alito. Actually, this is an old list. I'm sorry, Samuel Alito passed away. And I will get you a new list. So that,
we don't have it. We don't have this list.
yeah, what I will do is I will get this graphic. I will send this to Madam Viola and she can send it to you. Or no, maybe it is. Let's see. No, it is right for right now. Stephen Breyer just announced he's going to be retiring, the one in the lower left-hand corner. But we will get you this so that you can have it also. But John Roberts, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, Stephen Breyer, Elena Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor. That's how you say those names.
So which one should we remember?
John Roberts, this one.
John Roberts.
Yeah. John Roberts, the one that's up in the corner here.
Okay.
Okay. And then question number 39 is how many justices are on the Supreme Court? There are 9.
No.
There are 9, yes. And then here's the question number 40 that I just mentioned a minute ago. Who is the Chief Justice of the United States? John Roberts. Yeah. Unfortunately, your screen won't have on your document red lines. Okay, we're going to do just a couple more questions. Let me see where we are here. We will go through 47. So we only have a few more questions we're going to go through. Under the Constitution, some powers belong to the federal government. What is one power of the federal government? Is the term federal, is that a term you guys understand now? That means the United States government, not the state governments. It means the Washington, D.C. government, the federal government, U.S. government. Under the Constitution, the government is allowed to print money, and only the government can print money. States cannot print money. Cities cannot print money. No one can come up with their own money that they say is going to be legal for everybody. It is something where the Constitution says that the government has the right to do that only. So to print money, to declare war, to create an army, and to make treaties at the end of wars. So those are responsibilities of the federal government. The next question is important because it says, under the Constitution, some powers belong to the states. Now, the first one, you have to only remember one power, like printing money or declaring war, that the Constitution does give the federal government.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the president doesn't have the power to start the war yet?
No, he does not have the power to start a war. Only Congress can do that.
Okay.
And states cannot do that. Virginia cannot say, we're going to go into a war against France because we don't like French people. Virginia cannot declare a war. Only the federal government can declare a war in the United States. Okay, now under the Constitution, some powers belong to the states. You have to name one of these powers. Providing education. How a state manages the education of their children is up to the state. If they want to have school systems that are starting in August and ending in May, they can do that. They can do it on the calendar that they choose. That's a state decision. Providing police, that's the responsibility of the state. Now, when I say the state, they have a state police, but cities also have police departments. But it's not the federal government's job to provide police for the city of Anaheim or for the city of Irvine. They have, the states have state police and the federal government has the military. In other countries, military is what runs everything, not in this country. We have police and we have military, two distinct entities, and the police are governed by states and local jurisdictions. Okay, they provide safety, which is the fire and the emergency vehicles and all that. The states get to decide what age and what your test looks like to get a driver's license. So if you go to a different state, you need to get a state license in that new state. That means to live. They accept your license if you're just driving through the state. But if you're going to live in another state, you have to take a driving test in that state, because some states have different laws in driving than other states. They're not big law differences, but they have differences. For example, in California, when you come to a red light and you stop and you're in the right-hand lane, after you stop and you look all directions, you can make a right-hand turn. In some states, you cannot do that. You have to stop and you only get to make a right-hand turn when the light turns green. And you need to, when you move to another state, learn the laws in that state. And so, but only if you're moving to it, only if you're going to live in it, in that other state. So driver's license. And the other thing is ages. In our state, 16 is the age to get a driver's license. It used to be in Florida, the age was 14 to get a driver's license, which is a very scary thought.
Yeah.
14-year-olds driving. Yeah, and not on a farm in the backwoods, driving on the roads and the freeways. That's scary. Anyway. And then approve zoning and how the land in their state is used. The state gets to decide how land in their state is used, except for lands that have been given to or become a national park. For example, in Wyoming, there is the national park called Yellowstone. The federal government, the Department of Interior, and the Department of National Parks manages Yellowstone, even though it's in Wyoming. The state does not manage that. But when it comes to whether or not you can build a complex in the center of a town for businesses, or it's going to be houses, that kind of land use and zoning, the states and the local governments make those decisions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, in our state of California, we have a governor who is named Gavin Newsom. And he will be the governor for at least another, I think it's 4 years. I think he was elected in 2018. He gets elected for 6 years, so another 2 years, excuse me. So 2024 is when he would get reelected. And governors of states have different term limits based on the state. So, and let's see here. Yeah, it says the issues are governed by the state laws.
Teacher, who
Yes.
elect the governor?
The governor is elected by the people of the state.
Okay.
So people who live in Oregon could not elect the governor who is in California. And the people in California cannot elect the governor of Arizona.
And is it 4-year duration something?
Some governors are elected for 4 years, some are elected for 6 years. I don't think there are any less than 4 years.
But this is one time or twice?
Oh, no,
Many times.
in some states have no term limits. Someone can be a governor for many, many terms. And some states do have term limits. Those are all decided by the state and the state legislature. For example, it gives 2 exceptions here where it says New Hampshire and Vermont, where governors only serve for 2 years. I don't think there's any less than 2 years. Most of them are 4 years, and in California, it's 6 years. Okay, what is the capital of your state? I think all of us are in California, so do you know the capital of California?
Sacramento.
Sacramento.
I love the way you guys say that, Sacramento.
How it's pronounced?
No, Sacramento is correct, but I love the accent you put on it, Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Yes. And when the Spanish were here, it was Sacramento. They make the R trill. So
Yeah, yeah.
Sacramento.
Oh,
Sacramento.
Yes. Okay. We're almost done with tonight. There are 2 major political parties in the United States. There are more political parties than just 2, but there are 2 main ones. And you have to be able to name the 2 main ones. And when they say main, it isn't a matter of importance. It's a matter of size or population. We have 2 large political parties. They are the Republican and the Democratic Party. And you have to remember both and know how to say both those names. You don't have to define them, but there is history that's written here on your paper on when they came about. And if you want to go on Google, you can find out the differences between them and what they stand for if you're interested. When you become a citizen, you'll be asked to register in a party. Now, beyond that, there's the Greenpeace Party. Those are the people who are very environmentally conscious. There's the Libertarian Party that says that we don't believe in certain aspects of the way the government is run. There's the Independent Party that says I'm not going to be a party of any other party. So there's other political parties, but for the most part, we have 2 major ones, and that's what you'll need to know. And then question 46, and these are very, very academic questions. What is the political party of our current president? And he is a Democrat, so he's a member of the
Democratic Party.
Yes, Donald Trump was a member of the Republican Party.
Teacher, 45,
Yes,
like you said, there is 2 parties, Democratic and
major.
Republican.
2
Yes.
major parties.
For example, if I choose to be independent,
Mhm.
because, to be in one party, you have some knowledge of that party. It doesn't mean that I say I'm Democrat but I don't know what's democratic meaning. For say I'm Republican, but I don't know what is the main purpose, what the Republican actually aims, the target.
Right.
So if I select like as an independent, so is that okay, right?
Yes, it is. It is. And
I can go on the vote and I say I'm independent, not
Yes.
any party. Is that good?
Well, the independent is they group together as though they are a party, not just separately independent. But what it means is you don't ascribe to any other party. You don't follow a political platform or a philosophy that's established by another party. You are independent. And yes, you can register that way. And there's no one who is going to make you feel that you cannot. There are main differences between the Democrats and the Republican. Democrats believe in big government. The government is in charge of everything. That's what they believe. They believe more of that. The Republican Party believes, no, there should be less government involved in our lives. And that is probably the greatest difference between the two of them. And the histories for those go back a long way. But
okay, teacher, so what do you think for us? For example, so that's very important question. So should we think about one of the party or don't think at all? Because I think it's a big, it's a long path to understand, actually for me, I think both of them, Democratic and Republic, they should think about one America. It's one thing. So if there is a little different in their perspective, that's okay. But both of them thinking the benefit of the US, right?
yes, both of them are supposed to have the best interests of the US citizens at heart. And there are times where there are people within those parties that do not, but that's what they're supposed to do. My suggestion, you asked for my suggestion would be when you take your interview for your test, you study and you talk to somebody who is a Democrat and talk to somebody who is a Republican and find out why they are in one place or the other. And they will be able to tell you. It will be because they disagree with this policy and agree with this one, or they have a position on something that this political party represents very well. So when you get ready to select a party because you are a citizen, I would suggest you talk with people and then make your own decision. The wrong thing to do would be just go with, put your finger on a name and decide that's what you're going to do. It is an intelligent decision that I think you need to wisely make. And if after listening to what Republicans and Democrats say, you think they're all full of hot water, then you decide to go independent. That's perfectly okay. It doesn't stop you from voting in elections.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then the last question for tonight is, what is the name? We already talked about this. The name of the Speaker of the House of Representatives right now, and her name is Nancy Pelosi. And she is, I think she's 81 years old. She's been doing it for a long time. She's been in the House of Representatives for a long time. And she is a member of the House of Representatives from California, from the San Francisco area, and she is a Democrat. So we covered a lot of territory tonight. And so I know that there may be some questions. What I would like you to do is, if all of you, since you all have the papers, is review all that we've gone through. And then if you have any questions during the week, you send them to Madam Viola over the WhatsApp, and I will get answers to you because there was a lot of information tonight. And then I have another question also. Next Monday is a federal holiday. It's called President's Day. And I don't know, at least, am I right, Viola? It is next week, right?
Next week?
Kids are out of school. No, it's not. No, next week is Valentine's Day. Oh, you get to take your sweetheart out.
Oh, Valentine's Day is necessary.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now. Yeah. So all of you who have a sweetheart, you get to take your wife, take your husband out to dinner for a nice dinner. Tell them how much you love them. That's what Valentine's Day is. in our country.
Who will take care of our kids?
Take your husband.
Oh, just tie the kids up and put them in a closet. No, I'm kidding.
And red shower.
And this is when we all try to be more romantic than we normally are. But it's a fun holiday. And then the following week, the 21st is President's Day. Please be thinking, and I don't know if you're going to be available next week, which is Valentine's Day. If you are, I have no problem doing this. But the following week, President's Day, probably we will not, because you will have kids out of school. You may plan fun things for the day, and so the 21st we will not be doing this for sure. But next week, if you want to. But here's the thing: if we only have 3 people who want to next week on Valentine's Day, it's probably best to wait until we have a larger group so that they can take more advantage of it. So Viola, I'll let you get the information from everybody on who's going to be available, and you can send out a little question.
هيبقى الفالنتاين هتقدروا تيجوا لان الاثنين اللي بعده اجازه رسمي وهو يوم 21 فمش هيكون فيه نغيب
Yes,
اسبوعين مع
yes.
بعض
ما في مشكلة. Yes, نقدر نجي.
اوكي كل الناس هتيجي الاسبوع الجاي؟
Yes.
ناس تحتفل ناس تجي.
Yes.
Okay, 21.
Yes.
We will be if I give off 21.
Okay, off 21, but next week we will meet.
All
Yeah.
they said yes.
Okay, very good, very good. That's fine. Then I will see you all next week. Thank you for tonight,
Thank you.
Excuse
and
me.
God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Mike.
One
Thank you so
question.
much.
Okay,
God bless you too.
next week I will ask you the question.
Some people ask me about the recording.
Oh, yes. You know, I haven't sent those to you. I have them all. I will send them to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes. Now, next week, we will review first, but I'm also going to ask you who had the most romantic day from your spouse. And we'll see what you say. Okay. You all have a wonderful week. God bless you.
You too.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Mike.
Thank